My name is Marta Valença. I have 64 years, and if you saw me a short time ago, you would have said that I was a woman of faith. Born and raised in Campina Grande, in Paraíba, I grew up in the pews of an evangelical church, with the sound of hymns marking each phase of my life. It was rare for me to miss a service. He participated in Holy Communion with reverence, or at least he thought so. I prayed, fasted, read the Bible. From the outside, everything looked fine, but inside, the heart was a silent desert. The truth is that my faith was like a party dress, beautiful, clean, but only worn on specific occasions. I knew how to speak the right words. I knew how to console others with Bible verses, and how to be indignant at other people's sins. But my inner self was full of judgments, stored hurts, and a hardness that even I couldn't see clearly. I didn't see myself like that, of course. We never see each other. I believed that because I did not commit major sins, my salvation was certain. Holy Supper for me became a sacred but automatic rite. I knelt down, ate the bread, drank the cup, and returned home with the same dry soul. Everything changed on an ordinary Thursday morning. I was at home alone preparing coffee. Nothing special. Bread on the plate, freshly brewed coffee. But that day something strange happened. A strong dizziness made me lean against the counter. Within seconds, a dull pain took over my chest, radiating to my left arm. My heart felt like a machine out of control. I couldn't scream. I just felt the world turning off. But what came after? So what came after has no logical explanation. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't delusional. It was more real than anything I've ever experienced. I felt my body falling behind, as if I had escaped him. I floated for a moment, seeing my kitchen from above, my body lying on the floor, the pot spilling coffee on the stove, and then everything went dark. But it wasn't just any dark. It was an absolute, profound silence, like the womb of the universe. Little by little, a light began to emerge in front of me. It was no ordinary light. It was alive, and more than lighting me up. She saw me. It penetrated me, and there, in that intense and pure presence, I knew, without anyone telling me, that I was facing something, or somebody, sacred. My soul fell silent. Everything I thought I knew about God was undone in a second. The light seemed to weigh on me, but not like a physical weight. It was a real weight. And shame. It was just the beginning. In that light, I couldn't lie. Don't even pretend, nor hide. It was as if all the layers I had built throughout my life, the beautiful words, the polite smiles, the Christian gestures, had been ripped away in an instant. I was naked, not in the body, but in the soul. That's when I realized that the light had eyes, not like ours, physical ones, but eyes that saw through everything. And when I say everything, it means everything. The things I did, the ones I stopped doing, the intentions behind each gesture, the times I helped someone just to feel good. Prayers said automatically, the supper taken with a heart full of judgment, anger camouflaged in advice, the hurt that I hid even from myself. A presence approached. I didn't see a face, but I felt an intense pain coming from him, as if every step he took towards me revealed more of my true state. And then I heard, not with my ears, but with my spirit, "You honored me with your lips, but your heart was far from me." Those words shot through me like arrows. I tried to justify, cry, argue it, but there was no way. In that place, the truth was absolute, and there was no room for self-deception. That was when something began to form before me, a kind of mesa, long, beautiful, simple, and glorious at the same time. And I knew, I don't know how, but I knew, it was the Lord's table. I saw hundreds of people around her, kneeling, crying, broken. Some were removed. Others sat with their faces bathed in tears, but at peace. The presence of Jesus there was indescribable. He didn't speak with words, but with his eyes. A look full of love, and at the same time, sadness. When he turned to me, I felt as if time had stopped. I found myself in front of Christ that I said I knew, but now there was no background music, no preaching, no hymn, just him and me. And in that divine silence I heard it again, this time straight from his heart. You participated in my supper as if it were a ritual. But this is my body. This is my blood. Did you understand what you were doing? At that moment, scenes from my life began to flash before me as if projected into light. I saw every holy supper I attended, each one of them. I saw myself eating the bread and drinking the cup while my heart judged someone in the church. I saw my eyes rolling discreetly, in front of a sister who was crying in the service. I saw my hidden, cold thoughts as I listened to messages about Calvary. That was unbearable. I wanted to shrink, disappear, implode, but it didn't work. I was there, in front of the truth-made person. And then he said something that still resonates with me to this day. He who eats unworthily eats to his own condemnation. And at that moment I understood that more than sin, what separated me from him was empty religiosity. I never imagined that the Holy Supper, that ceremony so familiar to me, could be something so decisive. There, before that heavenly table, I realized that what I thought was a symbolic memorial was, in fact, a court of the soul. Jesus looked at me once again. This time I felt something even deeper, pain. But it wasn't mine, it was his. A silent, serene, but crushing pain, as if he carried it every time I went to the table without true repentance, as if each sip of the cup, taken with a hardened heart, had been one more wound on his already crucified body. You did this in memory of me, but did you know me? That question cut deep. I wanted to answer yes, but the truth stuck in my throat. Deep down, I knew that my faith had always been based on behaviors, not relationships. I believed in God, yes, but did you know him? No, I knew to liturgy, the tradition, the environment. He knew when to raise his hand, when to lower his head. But I didn't know how to hear his voice. I never had the courage to face my soul in the mirror of the cross. Jesus then stretched out his hand across the table, and there, where before there was bread and wine, there appeared a cross, alive, pulsating, full of light and pain at the same time. And I heard, "This is what you said you remembered, but you never allowed yourself to feel it." And then I felt. For the first time, I felt what Calvary was, not as a story told, but as if I were there. I heard the nails. I heard the scream. I felt the weight of the cross, the thirst, the abandonment. I felt Father turning away. I felt the loves and the price. It was like an electric shock to the soul. I screamed. I fell to my knees before that cross. There was no way to resist. I cried for hours that felt like seconds. His presence crushed me, but at the same time it restored me. It was as if each tear washed away years of deceit. And in the midst of that inner collapse, Jesus bowed down before me. Yes, the King of the universe, bent down, and he said something I will never forget. "It's not too late, there's still time, I came for you." I felt his hands touch my head. A light went through my mind, and then I saw a kind of open book. It was my life, but not the dates, the facts, the deeds, it was the heart behind everything. I saw my most hidden fears, my need to appear holy, my pride disguised as zeal, my spiritual advice that came from a place of superiority. All, before the holiness of Christ, all that was dust and vanity. And there, on my knees, with my face to the ground, I said the words I had never truly said in all my years of faith. "Jesus, forgive me. I didn't know you. I want to know you." His response was silence, but a silence full of love. Kneeling before him, I felt like something inside me was dying, but it wasn't the body, it was the pride, the illusion that I was good enough, that my religious life history would guarantee me some entry into heaven. All of that was dissolving like smoke before the glory of Jesus. I started remembering faces, many, church brothers I silently criticized, young people who were looking for a place in the ministry, but who I judged as immature, women who opened up to me expecting acceptance and only listened ready-made sentences, empty, without compassion. I saw everything, one by one. And they each asked, worst, I saw how much I felt better than them, as if my holiness had some shine of its own, as if I were worthy of grace for knowing how to speak the right language of believers. Jesus didn't accuse me, but his presence was like an irrefutable mirror. He didn't need to condemn me. I saw myself. For the first time, I really saw myself. I cried until the floor disappeared, literally. I was immersed in a kind of river of light. It wasn't water. It was a living current, which invaded my soul from all sides. In this river, I felt my guilt letting go. Every thought, every attitude that I hid, even from myself, was uprooted. And as I was being purified, I began to remember something I had forgotten years ago. The joy of my childhood with God. Before religion, before obligations, before performance. When I prayed sincerely as a little girl under the blanket, I felt that God was there. When my heart was soft, not dry, I felt it again. Not just feel, remembering who I was before I lost myself in religion. Jesus then looked at me and said, in a soft but firm voice, I didn't come to look for those who think they are righteous. I came to look for those who recognize that they are lost. Those words were like a second death. It didn't hurt like it used to. It was sweet, because for the first time I was ready to be born again. And then before my eyes I saw a crowd. It was as if souls appeared out of nowhere, all with familiar and unknown faces. Some were crying, others laughed. Everyone was at the same table that I had seen. Before, the Lord's table. But now I saw understanding in your eyes. They understood the weight of the supper. They didn't come in a hurry. They came with broken hearts, as if they understood that they were entering sacred territory. Jesus showed me that the supper was not a monthly event. It was a spiritual portal. Every time someone eats the bread and drinks the cup with a repentant heart, heaven opens, and he is there, present. But when it is taken in a banal way, without self-analysis, it is like laughing at the cross. That was a shock. I realized that I had been mocking the cross for years without knowing it. And then the question came to my mind, raw and clear. How many more are like I was and don't know? When Jesus showed me that crowd, something inside me began to burn. It was as if I could feel the weight of his pain for me. Every soul that lives faith as I lived, on autopilot, full of good intentions, but without brokenness, no truth, lifeless. He made me walk among them. Each person I touched showed me their own story. It was as if their spiritual layers were exposed, like some kind of X-ray of the soul. I saw pastors with strong speeches, but tired and cold hearts. I saw women leaders like me with wide smiles and dry eyes, young people who went to church out of obligation, old people who were there out of fear of hell, not out of love for heaven. And then came the harshest revelation. Many were like me, and thought they were saved. Jesus said something to me that seemed to shake the whole place. They seek me, but they do not find me, because they are not willing to lose themselves. At that moment I understood. Supper is the ultimate symbol of losing oneself, from denying yourself, of recognizing that the cross, it's not just a place where he died, but where I must die too. I saw scenes of churches. I saw lines going to the altar for supper, and over each person there was a light or a shadow. The lights shone like pure fire on a few, but most walked with thick shadows on their shoulders, as if they were there by routine, as if it were another religious ritual. And Jesus cried. Yes, he cried. It wasn't a cry of anger, it was a cry of frustrated love, like someone who expected an intimate dinner and received an empty theater. He then said to me, "Pues Marta, you will come back, and when you come back you will tell this. It will shake those who are sleeping." My heart froze. To go back? Count? As who would believe me? And before I finished that thought, I saw my own house. I saw my body. I saw my church. But now I saw everything with different eyes. I saw how many there were trapped in appearances, like I was. I saw the superficiality of services where everyone applauds, but no one breaks down. I have seen brothers who have been harboring grievances for years, but take the supper as if nothing had happened. I saw people who pray for the sick, but hate their neighbors. And then I understood. My mission was not to accuse, it was warning. Jesus looked into my eyes one last time and said, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church." At that moment, everything began to shake. A sound like a trumpet sounded in the distance, and a force pulled me at speed. The light went out, the pain returned, and I was back in my body. But something had changed. Everything had changed. I woke up with a sudden shock in my chest, as if I had been thrown back into my body. My eyes opened as if something had pulled them from the inside out. The hospital light blinded me for a moment. The strong smell of antiseptic, monitors beeping, voices running back and forth, muffled screams, and I live. There were doctors all around me, nurses. One of them exclaimed, "She's back!" But little did they know that the martyr who returned was no longer the same one who entered there. I was hospitalized for 3 days after the heart attack. Doctors called it an imminent death experience. One of them used the term NDE, but for me it was more than that. It was a divine summons. For the first few days I could barely speak, not because my body was weak, but because the words of the world seemed too small to describe what I had experienced. My daughter came to visit me. She hugged me tightly, her eyes full of relief. "Mom, you gave us a scare. We thought we lost you." And I just smiled, with tears in my eyes, because in a way losing myself was exactly what saved me. Returning to the routine was like walking through a grey world after seeing heaven in colour. The church, the services, the music, everything was the same. But nothing made the same sense. The prayers seemed empty. Praises, mechanics, the environment is cold. I noticed every word, every gesture, every look, and I could see beyond. I began to notice who ate supper with tears, and who did it just out of habit. And worst of all, I started to remember how I was just like them. I didn't judge them, but it hurt. Tried to tell the pastor. I took him aside and with great humility shared my experience. He listened with a worried smile on his face, as if he didn't want to disrespect me. But clearly I didn't believe it. God speaks in many ways, Sister Marta, but maybe it was just a dream caused by the medication. It hurt me. But that didn't make me back down, because I knew what I experienced, and no one can discredit. A soul that has been laid bare before Christ himself. I started writing. Write everything down, every detail, every word, every image, as if it were an urgent call, a message with a deadline. But I soon realized that the resistance would be great. People I considered close started to avoid me. Some whispered that I was exaggerating, that I became too mystical after hospitalization. That's when I understood. Not everyone is ready to listen. But God didn't tell me to convince. He told me to tell him. And even without a stage, without a microphone, without credibility, I decided to obey. Because after seeing what I saw, to remain silent would be a greater sin. Obeying God seems like a beautiful thing when we talk about it in worship, but living this obedience costs, and a lot. I began sharing my experience with anyone who would listen, in line at the bank, visiting a sick sister, during tea with church friends. It didn't impose. I didn't force it. It was just telling the truth, with love, urgently. But most of the reactions were the same, an uncomfortable silence, a wry smile, and soon after a way of changing the subject. Some listened to me, yes. A few. And these cried. They felt. A man called me at night saying, "Donna Marta, after what you said, I understood that I was just representing faith. Today I went to my room and asked Jesus to show me who I really am." That phone call was like a balm, because until then I felt like a stranger in my own faith community, and that was perhaps the hardest thing to face, realizing that the church I loved was asleep, and that maybe it always would be. The following Sunday, I participated in Holy Communion, first time since I came back, and I was shaking, but not with emotion nor with nervousness. It was fear. Holy fear. I sat on the wooden bench with my heart in pieces. I couldn't sing during the praises, I just cried. When the deacon came with the tray, I reached out my hand, but it was shaking so much that I almost dropped the chalice. I closed my eyes, and again I saw the cross, not like before, not in pain, but with heartbreaking gratitude. I felt the blood running through me, not literal, but inside the soul, like a cloak. And at that moment, I asked for forgiveness. Again, as if it were the first time, because I understood that the true gospel is a daily cross, not a spiritual trophy. And there, before the bread and wine, I promised God, even if no one hears, I will speak. Even if they see me as crazy, I will tell, because I have seen what is behind the veil, and what is there is too real to be silenced. I started writing short texts with simple language and started publishing them on social media. To my surprise, some people started sharing, to comment, calling me to talk. But along with that came criticism. Church brothers said I was causing a spiritual uproar. Others said I saw too much, that I should have stayed quiet. And that's when the penny dropped. Religiosity fears true repentance, because he confronts, because it removes comfort, because he shows that no appearance can stand up to the light. But it was already too late to turn back. I had seen it, and who sees can't unsee. Over time, I realized that God didn't want me to make noise. He wanted me to go fell. It wasn't about filling auditoriums nor write a book. It was about wake up hearts one by one, like someone lighting candles in a dark room. And even if this room had 100 chairs, if a single flame lit up, it would be worth it. I started inviting some women to my house once a week. Nothing too formal, a coffee, a prayer, a text. But what we shared most was truth without performance. At the first meeting, there were only 4 of us. One of them cried without stopping when she heard my story. When we managed to talk, she said, in a choked voice, "Marta, I never understood the supper. I thought it was just a memory. I never knew that God was probing me at that moment." And there, I realized that my experience was not mine alone. It was a mirror. Each week another came, and the most beautiful thing is that those conversations didn't revolve around me but around him. I only told what I experienced. They opened their hearts, and something holy happened. The atmosphere changed. It was as if the true table of the Lord was being assembled there, invisible between us. No decorations, no hymns playing, no bread or wine, but there was something deeper. Surrender. It was as if we were sitting down before the real supper, one that is not only made with physical elements, but with the Spirit in truth. And there I understood. That's what Jesus wanted. I started having dreams where I saw entire churches kneeling crying before supper, dreams about broken men asking for forgiveness before touching bread, children seeing visions of the cross, pastors confessing secret sins and being restored, families reconciling before the service. And every time I woke up, I felt the same small voice in my heart. That's why I brought you back. But with the revelation also came the attacks. Some leaders began to say that I was dividing the church. Others said that my experience was too personal to be doctrine. But I didn't preach doctrine. It didn't create rules. I only told the truth of what I saw. And everyone who listened was either touched or bothered. And it was in this discomfort that I realized another revelation. The real presence of Jesus in the supper is like fire. It purifies those who are clean but burns those who hide behind appearances. And the question that echoed inside me day after day was simple and devastating. Who are you when you approach the table? The answer to this question defines everything. The Lord began to bother me about something I was trying to avoid. Return to church to speak. Not for one brother or another, but for everyone, before the altar. Just thinking about it made my hands sweat. My heart was racing. That was too much to ask. I knew the environment. I knew how many there valued the liturgy more than life in the Spirit. I knew there were egos, positions, vanities hidden beneath jackets and long skirts. And above all, I knew what they would say. Here comes Marta with her visions. But the voice inside me was insistent. Speak. I will be with you. The pastor, was reluctant when I asked for 5 minutes at the supper service. He said time was tight, that there was programming. Maybe on another day. I didn't insist. I just replied meekly, "If it is God's will, He will open the door Himself." The following week, he called me. The voice was different, softer, almost embarrassed. "Sister Marta, do you still want to talk on Sunday?" And there I knew God had touched something. On the day of supper, the church was full. Like always, dresses lined up, men with Bibles under their arms, children with ties. Everything is very beautiful, but I saw it differently now. He knew that not everyone there was ready to touch the bread, and that hurt me. The service followed. Hymns sung, words read. But when they called me forward, time stopped. I climbed up with shaky legs. I picked up the microphone carefully, and I took a deep breath. Brothers, what I'm going to say doesn't come from me, and I don't ask you to believe my words. I just ask you to listen with your heart. And then I started counting. Calmly. Truly. From the moment I fell in the kitchen until the moment I saw the cross. From the eyes of Jesus, from the table, from the sleeping crowd, from His tears, of my coldness, and how He brought me back with a single purpose: wake up those who live their faith mechanically. The hall fell silent. A silence that hurt. Some lowered their heads, others stared at me without blinking. When I finished, I looked straight at the cup on the table and said, "Supper is the most serious moment of our journey. Whoever approaches it carries an eternal seal. May he find in us not perfection, but sincerity, repentance, hunger for truth." I walked down from the pulpit in silence. There was no applause, no comments. But in the end, a sister hugged me crying. Afterwards, a young man came to me and said, "Today I understood that I had never really participated in the supper." And there, in the midst of hearts that were beginning to break, I realized the seed was planted. It's been 2 years since that day in church. Life went on. My hair is whiter, my hands are slower, but my soul has never been so alive. Today I look back and see how God saved me from myself. I thought I knew Him. I thought I was mature in my faith. I thought I was ready to meet Him, but I was just comfortably mistaken. That near-death experience wasn't a punishment. It was fun, a love so fierce that it ripped me away from the soft lie of religiosity. I learned that Holy Supper. It's not a pretty ritual to decorate the first Sunday service. It's a portal, a mirror, a sacred field where only those who have the courage to see themselves as they really are can enter, and whoever sees it surrenders. Today, every time I see someone approach the bread and the cup with a neutral face, with a vacant look, with their heart somewhere else, my spirit cries, but I don't judge anymore. I pray, because I know that's how I was for decades. I continue telling my story. I no longer worry about who believes or not, because I understood the words that come from heaven don't need applause. They just need to find fertile soil. Some churches started inviting me. I've been to simple places where the chairs are made of plastic and the floor is made of clay, and the presence of God was as palpable as the air. I've been to huge temples full of lights and sounds where everything was impeccable, except the regret. And in all these places I say the same thing. Before you touch the bread, ask the Lord what is still hidden in me. Today, my room became an altar. Before supper, I spend time alone with Him, and every time I close my eyes, I remember that look of the Christ who showed me my soul and did not reject me, who hurt me to heal me, who exposed me to free me. That light still guides me, not every day with intensity, but always present, like a lit ember, burning slowly, remembering. You have been called to wake up, and maybe this video is coming to you for a reason. Perhaps you have also lived a faith based on forms, but far from the essence. Maybe you too are going to the table with a sleeping heart. If so, please, listen, before it's too late. Why? Supper. It's not just a symbol, it's a promise, a trial, and an invitation to eternity. Accept the invitation. While there's still time, accept the invitation. While there's still time,